Hey, this is Erika.
And this is Tina.
And we are A92A. A92A stands for ages 9 to adult. That's how long we've been on this journey together as friends.
92 is also our high school graduation year.
And ages 9 to adult is a nod to the board game life, which we rockified as kids in order to live out our rock and roll fantasies. Thank you for tuning in. I am so thrilled today. We've actually been working on this interview for a while. I'm so happy to introduce our guest because I've listened to so many interviews with this guy. He's just the most magnetic personality you could imagine. I'm talking about Chip Z'Nuff, bassist, lead vocalist, and founding member of one of our favorite bands, Enuff Z'Nuff. Chip, welcome to the podcast. We are so happy to have you with us today.
Thank you very much. A belated Happy New Year to everybody in the studios over there and around the world.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I'm so excited for this. Actually, Chip, you mentioned, Chicago. We've all heard about the 80s rock and metal scene out in Los Angeles, and we also know the East Coast had its own vibe, but you guys formed in Illinois. I want to hear about what was that like, forming a band in the 80s in your area? What was the music scene like? What were the challenges? Tell us a little bit about that time period.
Chicago was throbbing with life. We had so many great bands here in the Midwest that were playing, and it was really typical for any bands to get a record deal back then. There wasn't so many labels. First of all, second of all, nobody had recording studios in their house like they do nowadays. There was some challenging times for most of the musicians, especially out here in the Midwest. Over in the West Coast, I think it was a little more liberal when it comes to recording studios and place to go play. Still cost an exponential amount of money to go record records. But the bands out here all were really hardworking that just wanted to go out and play gigs every single day, like they were around the United States as well, I'm sure. But at that time, the playing field was full. It was really challenging for anyone to find a label that would be interested in your music, first of all.
Yeah.
And second of all, it's hard to find gigs. Everybody was playing, and we were playing for free, just to steal the audience of the bands that they would be opening for and supporting. But for us, what we did, we bought ourselves a 4-track Fostex machine, and we just started doing recording in my apartment.
Yeah.
And recorded a bunch of songs, and then I was lucky enough to where I had a recording session at a place called Royal Recorders in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. Mm-hmm. And I went down there to see some friends of ours that were recording in the studio, and they needed some equipment. We dropped off some equipment there, and then we started talking to the people that were at the studio, and they were interested in some of the music that we were recording, and we gave them a cassette tape. That was it. Cassettes were the big thing back then.
Yeah.
And that shows you at my age. And from there, we were able to work our way into the studio in Lake Geneva and do a little bit of recording over there. And that really was what started the ball rolling for Enuff Z'Nuff, because Doc McGee, Kiss's manager, at the time he was managing Motley Crue and Bon Jovi as well as Scorpions. He heard our cassette, and he says, Chip, I have 3 cassette tapes in my car. 2 of them are your band. I said, oh, thanks. I appreciate that. I knew about Doc, but I didn't know. I wasn't educated on all the bands he was working with because I was preoccupied with Enuff Z'Nuff. Mm-hmm. And I said, I appreciate that. And he says, I might have a friend of mine that'd be interested in your band. And I said, oh, that's terrific. And at the time when we were talking, Skid Row was in the studio. I seen Sebastian walking through the halls. He had the look of the world, 6'5", thin, chiseled, no shirt on, smoking a joint. I said, this guy is cool. And then they went in there to record, and I'm listening to it. I'm going, I think we're as good as this. We can do this. Boy, I certainly hope we get a chance. And evidently, Doc McGee took that tape back to New York and gave it to a guy who signed Cinderella and Bon Jovi, a guy named Derek Showman. And Derek was kind enough to listen to our stuff. And he thought, these guys have a fantastic sound. I want to see them play. So Derek Showman flew here to Chicago. We were at a place called Dress Rehearsal, small little room on the north side of Chicago where all the bands would rehearse there, Smashing Pumpkins, Veruca Salt, etc. And we paid $10 an hour to rehearse our songs. And basically all we did was hang out and talk and smoke pot and drink and really not do a lot of work. To be honest with you, we're pretty even though it was a hardworking band in the studio when we were recording the songs, live was a little bit different to get everybody on the same page. But Derek ended up flying out to Chicago to see us at a rehearsal. It was a debacle. Okay, it was terrible. Tons of people hanging around, smoking, drinking, not paying attention. It was not focused at all. We played a couple songs for him, and we said, "Have you heard enough?" He says, "Yeah, I certainly did." And we said, "Okay, cool." And then we sat around talking a little while, and lo and behold, he split, and we went back to rehearsing and doing the same things we always do, just confusing motion with progress. And the following day, we got a facsimile from Atco Atlantic Records for a $250,000 record deal.
It's amazing.
In all the years of
Wow.
playing in the clubs, for no money and for Cheap Trick and BTO and anybody that would come through town, to then meet running into Doc McGee, and he's really the catalyst. Him and a guy named Bob Brigham that helped set things up for us and give us a chance to have a career. And then from there, we started recording the record.
Wow.
And the rest was pretty simple from there. It was just a matter of recording our debut record, which was basically our greatest hits. We just had all our best songs at that time. Probably had a couple hundred songs that Donnie and myself have written at that moment. And we recorded, I think, 20 songs, and we took the best 10 and we used that for the record and put it out there. And it seems that people gravitated to it. For some reason, we went down to a place called MTV, which was huge back then. And a guy named Rick Krim met us at the door. And just a wonderful guy. He loved pop stuff. You know, he's a big Badfinger fan. He loved bands like Cheap Trick and really English, sweet, loved the English stuff. And he was the guy that really, the cat that said, "I'll tell you what, I got some good stuff right here." He played us a couple of videos, as a matter of fact, that day at the studio at the MTV offices. And I thought that was pretty nice of him. And the stuff that he listened to, and I seen when in his eyes that playing the music that he was really a fan of, that he was Enuff Z'Nuff, which fit under that umbrella.
Yeah.
And we gave him a video. The record company heard that we had a nice relationship starting off with the MTV people, and we gave him a video for the first single new thing, and they started playing that, and that was it. It was the people that spoke. The band, of course, a lot of bands have great songs, but we had a great energy about us at that time. I was told, and we were really hungry, and I think the audience noticed that and picked up on it. When they seen the video, we were full of piss and vinegar, very flamboyant, very colorful.
Yeah.
And I think that was the reason why we were recognized as a band from Chicago. And
Well,
I
I love that because you guys, I mean, we talked a little bit about the music. The music was great. Like the music and the sound that you guys had was different. It was fresh. But you guys also had such a unique brand, just image with the colors and kind of the psychedelic imagery. And I think, certainly like our first exposure to Enuff Z'Nuff was probably through MTV, but it was just like a fresh perspective. It felt like it fit right in, but it was new and different. Where did that brand come from? Was that something you guys came up with kind of like this 60s, 70s almost vibe merging with the 80s? Or was the record label the one pushing it? Or how did that come about?
Well, I imagine it's, you are what you eat. And we grew up listening to that 60s stuff. We loved a lot of the old bands. We picked up on, obviously, the early English stuff, where we loved, the Beatles and Led Zeppelin and of course Queen. And then we liked a lot of underground stuff too, like Squeeze and Mott the Hoople, and it basically was a potpourri of songs that influenced us. But we weren't trying to sound like anybody. We were competing more than anything. We were trying to make records as good as David Bowie and Pink Floyd, and that's very challenging. Those are big shoes to fill.
Yeah.
We weren't listening to what was happening at the time, which was Poison and White Snake and Motley Crue and those bands, and those are nothing wrong with those bands. They're absolutely terrific what they do. But I think we just try to go to the left a little bit and zigzag our way around the music industry, just trying to do stuff that we felt was comfortable for us. And I believe that that's one of the reasons why Enuff Z'Nuff has had success all these years, is because we've always been a group that's been very hard to categorize.
Yeah.
Because we have elements of pop, alternative, rock, metal, it's a potpourri, so it was hard for a lot of his constituents and people in the industry to figure out exactly what we were all about. But when the record came out, people, grabbed onto it and said, "Oh, you guys are kind of Beatlesque." And that's one influence,
Yeah.
obviously. And I owe my job to Paul McCartney, that's for sure. And,
Yeah.
wonderful guy. I love the way he carries himself, and he's just a fantastic songwriter who can turn a melody line as good as anybody. And I felt we were in rarefied waters right there because the press was grabbing onto us, and we didn't look like a lot of those bands. I think when we came out, we had no money or anything, so we'd go in our moms and sisters' closets and grab all the scarves and hats and anything that would fit us, and that's what we wore for threads. And then when we went down to shoot our first video, we had no dough at all, and the record company Atco Atlantic was nice enough to give us a budget of $2,000, and we went down to some used clothing store that somebody over at Atco Records recommended to us, and we picked up a bunch of great stuff. I got one thing. I got a leather jacket, but I can reverse it inside out.
Wow.
And then I had one of the guys who was in that. I can't think of the movie, but it was a guy was an actor in a movie, and I had him paint the jacket for me. So I had enough enough face on the back of it,
Yeah.
and I could turn it around and change my outfit. And inside of the jacket was a silver lining, and we were all chiseled. We didn't have any dough for food or anything, so everybody
Yeah.
was tip top rock and roll shape. We all looked like junkies, but we weren't at that time. Although things changed later on. So we were chiseled, and we were able to shoot that video, and we looked like we had money, but we really didn't at the time. But we were so excited about what the future holds, and we knew we were coming out at a time where with Guns N' Roses out there, that was a big one. We thought, well, they sort of look like us a little bit. Maybe we'll go that in that direction. And obviously, looking back, I go, well, what if we came out in jeans and t-shirts? Would we be as big as you two? Don't know. I do know this much. MTV at that time wanted bands that were very flamboyant
Mhm.
and right on the verge of glitter rock glam. And so we had Paul Starr, who was our makeup artist, fixing us up there. And he was terrific. But he put a lot of lipstick and makeup and all kinds of stuff on us, and it made us look like trim. And we were fine with that at the time. And, I remember when we shot the video, uh, it seemed to come out very well. It seemed to be everybody was applauding us, and we played the song 100 times live in the studio while we were filming. And then we all went back to to our hometown, Chicago. And I got a call from the record company saying, "If you want to come down for the editing, you're welcome to." And I went down there by myself, and I changed everything. And I saw all the pictures. I seen different. She goes, "Yeah, what do you think?" And the director, and I go, "That's good." I go, "But what about that one picture on the left hand side there?" She goes, "Oh, you're right, Chip. That's nice. Let's try that." And they ended up changing. We were there for 12 hours working, and we came up at the end with a nice, concise video about a new thing. Which the new thing wasn't about drugs. It wasn't about a new relationship. It could have been about those things. I never like to say what the song is about because I don't want to take away the thoughts of the listener who are interpreting the song in their own way. But really, the song's about whatever moves you forward, whatever makes you excited. And I remember when we first wrote it, was "Get High in a Blue Thing." We said, then maybe might not be right for everybody. But a new thing is whatever you want it to be honest with you. And the image was great that matched the music, and it certainly was a video that helped give us wings, and we can move
Yeah.
forward as a band.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned a lot of the other bands that were becoming popular at that time. We've heard from other bands who were sort of frustrated that they were lumped in with this whole glam metal thing. You guys were definitely different. What kind of resistance did you meet when you were trying to express yourself differently? Were there labels and managers and people telling you, "No, be more like Poison or be more like this"?
No, no one told us anything, especially on the songs. The record company never even showed up at the studio. They just heard the demos and goes, "This is fabulous, you guys.
Mm.
Can you reproduce this again?" And we said, "Sure, we can." I've been living with these songs for years and years. We started the band in '84, and here we are now in 1989 making a record.
Yeah.
So we had a lot of years to navigate those murky waters, playing shows for no money with everybody that was out there would take us in for a gig. So I no, we there was no direction whatsoever. They liked the band being colorful,
Yeah.
That was something that was a prerequisite for MTV to play, and our record company liked it because you could sell that image. We
Mhm.
didn't know anything. All we knew is what we were as kids, moving forward, getting a chance to make a record in a place where thousands of bands go to sleep in a cemetery because there's no chance of having a career in the music industry because they
Mhm.
just have no direction.
Yeah.
We were lucky enough to surround ourselves with some pretty good people. And at that time, when that record came out, band was on fire. We immediately had action. We jumped on a tour. We were in a van, jumped on a tour. I think the first tour with a band called Badlands was J. Key Lee
Hmm.
and the late Ray Gillen, and the drummer from Kiss too, Eric Singer. He was also in the band with Greg Chase and some of their fantastic older guys, all cats 10, 12 years older than us. And it was really a lesson in fertility, watching these guys play every single night and how they carried themselves. And we learned right away what to do and what not to do. And that really set the tone for us for the future for
Yeah.
live shows. Image wise, I'm glad we came out that way. And if I look back in hindsight, because those shows were jam packed. There was tons of girls that were excited about seeing the band play live. All the shows were completely sold out, and we were opening for a band that was bigger than us and older than us. But I think we did a really good job. I'm proud of how we were able to get through that tour and leave an indelible mark in every single city.
Yeah.
Mhm. Let's talk for 1 second because we've talked a little bit about new thing. Fly High Michelle is one of the best songs ever, ever, ever of any time or any genre. I just absolutely love it. Can you talk a little bit about that song? And I know you said you don't like to talk about where it came from necessarily. You like to let the listener kind of interpret their own meaning. But where did that song come from? And talk a little bit about that song. It's just fabulous.
It's a great pop tune. Donnie brought it down to us. He's a wonderful singer songwriter. He really is. And
Mm.
listen, I never wanted the gig being the front man of Enuff Z'Nuff. I was happy with my brother's pipes. He's fantastic. But when he left the band in 2013, I knew it was going to be challenging singing the songs, but I'm singing them on the record with him. And my parts are very difficult on all those records, all those harmonies, and lead vocals as well. And he pushed me to do that stuff too because we love Queen so much, and there was more than one singer in Queen, and it was only Donnie and myself singing these songs every single day. So it was tough. I remember I really pillaged the riff from Adrian Belew. Adrian Belew and the Bears were recording, and I was playing the doom 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 on the bass. And Donnie heard that, and he went home and came up with a wonderful idea and a great melody line, and we recorded on the 4-track. And when we gave it to the record company, they were absolutely blown away. Wasn't the first song we gave them to. The first one was New Thing, which happened to be the single as well, ironically. But when we gave them Fly Michelle, I think that they were pleasantly surprised that a band that looked like us could come up with stuff that's so beautiful. In their eyes, that was through the people in the record company saying that, not me. But I'm glad to be a part of it and so be
Yeah.
a producer on that song as well. I think that it showed another side of the band. The first one came out was a little bit hard, a little aggressive, a little heavy, but it had a good message. But Fly High, it was a story that could be interpreted by anyone in a bunch of different ways. And I think it's the epitome of a pop song. And I go around the country and all the biggest bands in the world, from Aerosmith, Cheap Trick, Extreme, the guys at Motley Crue, all those cats, they all love that track.
Yeah.
And it did really well for us. It was our first gold record. We were really excited, and we thought, well, we can go and tour forever on these songs. And you know what? I have so far.
Yeah.
And you have.
Yeah. You mentioned being the front man now because in later years you took on the role as lead vocalist. Do you love it, or do you kind of long for the days where somebody else took the reins and did the lead vocals?
It's a challenging job. There's not about, and once I started doing it, I realized, because I've always had respect for singers, but it's an immense job, and it takes a lot of discipline. You have no choice. You can't be. I'm not going crazy on the road. I play the shows. I hang out with the fans. We're one of those bands that you can come up to us, and we're easy. We're very accessible. But you got to get sleep. That's the most important thing. I remember hanging out with Steven Tyler one day, and he says, I get into the shower in the afternoon, and I'm getting ready. We're going to play a show that night, and I got no pipes. I'm singing in the shower, and I don't have anything. And it says a lot of prayers. You got to be honest with you, is do the best you can to try to get through it. And by the time showtime is there, usually the fans give you that extra little oomph, that little bit of juice that you'll need to succeed. But challenging job. You remember, I was with one of the greatest, in my opinion, Donnie V is one of the greatest singers of our generation. There's no doubt about that. Guy can turn a melody line as good as anybody. I know, I was there. I helped produce those records. The guy's fabulous. And can pick up any instrument, play anything. Just a solid rock musician through and through. No doubt about that. So when he sashayed, I went to him and told him, I'm going to continue moving on with Enuff Z'Nuff. That's all I know really what to do, and that and produce records. And he says, if you're going to carry on, you should front the band. You co-wrote the songs, you produced the records. You'd be the guy to do it, and everybody will know once you step up on stage. Oh, it's Enuff Z'Nuff. And I'm glad I listened to him.
Yeah, I actually love that decision because, and I don't think other bands have done that. A lot of bands, if the lead singer has left, they've replaced the lead singer with a different lead singer. I love the fact that you kind of took the reins and took ownership of it, because it really was your band, and it has your name. And I think that's great. I think fans really appreciate that. I want to talk oh, go ahead. What were you going to say?
Thank you for saying that. I give a lot of thanks to my guitar player, Tori Stoffragan, who told me years ago, listen, if Donnie can't do this, maybe you should just take over and sing the songs. I go, I don't know if I feel comfortable doing that, bro. He goes, you do a great job. I would do it with you in a second. And then Tony Fennell from Ultravox, who was playing with us for a while, and he was a big catalyst. He was a real brother. He came, he goes, you can do this, mate. And if you can, he goes, we'll just get another guy. I said, okay, thanks for the vote of confidence. And when I first started playing the shows, I've been doing these songs for years, but when it's a different animal when you're in the front. So I had paper all over the stage. We didn't have a teleprompter or anything, and I'm trying to get through these songs, switching papers around and hiding them on the monitor so people can't see me. And it's hard to read off a piece of paper and sing. But yeah, after doing dozens and dozens of dates, I started getting a little more confidence in getting my wings. And now when you come out and see an Enuff Z'Nuff show, it's a real celebration of rock. Everyone tells me that, and we're not playing. We do a lot of festival gigs, and we get some gigs where we play some arenas with some national acts that are kind of to accept Enuff Z'Nuff on. But we're doing a lot of clubs still too here in North America. And a couple hundred people, maybe sometimes a little bit more, depends who we're out with. We just were out with Dead Daisies, we did something with Great White, and recently we just did the Skid Row tour. I think that we're reaching a new audience right now. It's the kids from the parents that grew up listening to us that are coming out and seeing these shows and experiencing this musical event that we bring to every single town. That has exponentially helped the band beyond belief. And the fans come up to me and they tell me, some of them don't know us from the early days, and they just love the band still. And all the songs we're playing, we're picking up stuff from, of course, we're playing the singles and the hits, the Baby Loves Yous and the new things, Fly Michelle's, but we're mixing it up too with other songs in our catalog, along with our Beatle record that we put out a few years ago called Hard Rock Night. And so the whole set's packed with full of hits, I guess is what I'm trying to tell you. You come see Enuff Z'Nuff play a show, and you'll recognize most of the songs in the set. And a lot of bands can't say that.
I want to ask you a minute about the Beatles, because you guys do a really cool presentation called the Beatles Rock Show, and it's basically the classic Beatles catalog, but with more of an arena rock kind of feel. Talk a little bit about that concept, where it came from, and how you feel about performing Beatles hits.
Well, obviously, I love performing Beatles hits, but it came about in a strange way. I got a telephone call from my agent, Chuck Burnell, over at Artists Worldwide. He says, "Hey, I met this promoter guy, and he wants to meet you. He wants to put together like a metal Beatle thing with a bunch of rock stars. Were you interested?" And I go, "Yeah, what? I'm just playing bass on." He goes, "No, you're going to be the front man." I go, "Oh, sounds good. Who are the guys?" He says, "It's Paul Gilbert from Mr. Big, Gilby Clarke from Guns N' Roses, and I think Ray Lucer they were trying to get. Although Mike Portnoy would have been great too, my cousin from Winery Dogs and Dream Theater. He's
Yeah.
fantastic. Either guy would have been just the perfect guy, and Brian Tishy would have been great too. And so I got a phone call saying, okay, you're going to meet at the Rainbow Bar and Grill and talk to this guy. So when we sat down, he goes right away. He goes, I want you to be the singer, and you're going to play bass in it, and it's going to be like all Beatles songs. I'm going to put you guys in a tour bus. You're going to make $20,000 for the month of doing the gig, and if it does well, we'll kick it up to another 20, and we'll do another run. I said, hey, it sounds great. So I'm thinking I can make a little bit of chippy poos, and I get a chance to play with some great musicians. I grew up with Paul Gilbert. We both had the same manager, which was Herbie Herbert, who managed Journey. And so we were wonderful friends. He always loved our songs. He even covered a couple songs on his record. So that was going to be a great one. Gilby Clarke, I worked with him in a band called the Wild Bunch with Pat D'Annunzio from Smithereens and the cat from MC5, Wayne Kramer, and Blondie's drummers, too. Clem Burke was in that. We did a whole tour together. So I had a good relationship with that. I said, this will be a slam dunk home run. We'll make some chippy poos and we'll do really good. And maybe the fans will come out and want to see a round too. So then I found out a month later or so that we just couldn't get together time wise with everybody. And Gilby Clarke says, I love Chip. He's a great singer, wonderful bass player. We might need to get a bigger name. So I go, well, I guess I pushed on that project. It was a good opportunity. And then during the shutdown here worldwide for everybody, and we were all suffering, I just come up with the idea of putting a project called Hard Rock Night, which was coincidentally the name of our record that we put out. But this was before we released that record. And I called Tony Fennell from Ultravox, and he was playing with us at the time. I said, Tony, I got an idea. I'd like to do a Beatle record, and we'll call it a Hard Rock Night, and it's all Beatles songs from later on 67 through 70, and when they were experimenting with drugs, and the band was out of control, and there was a lot of tension in there, but they were coming up with great songs at all times. Lennon, McCartney, fantastic writers, along with Ringo and George. And Tony goes, you've come up with some pretty good ideas, Chip. This might be the greatest idea you've ever come up with. He goes, write down some songs and let me hear what you want to do, and then we can go from there. So I immediately thought back to early Enuff Z'Nuff days, and we were doing songs like Cold Turkey, which is off Lennon's Shaved Fish record, or we did Back in the USSR and Dear Prudence off of the White Album. I thought, man, those are songs I might be able to sing and not be. It won't be as challenging. It's always going to be tough singing Beatles songs. The songs are great. They make it sound so simple. Those guys, they have such a great sense of balance, a wonderful timbre. I mean, it's been proven. I mean, how many songs they put out? 250 songs or whatever, and 246 of them are just absolutely brilliant beyond belief. So I just started recording some of the songs that I knew from the old days of Enuff Z'Nuff shows, and then gave them to the band. And from there, everybody goes, "Oh, this is a great idea. This is wonderful. Let's move forward." So we recorded that whole record, and then I went to our agency, and Craig and Chucky over at Artists Worldwide said, this might be tough getting the gigs using the name Hard Rock Night, and so we have to think about what we're going to do to navigate and move forward on this project. And it was one of the guys, I think it was Greg over at Artists Worldwide, said, maybe we should use a name like Beatles Rock Show. He goes, because people know right away it's what they're going to be getting. And we thought about that, and we said, yeah, it's great. And we just went out and got the Beatles Rock Show and started putting it on social media. And then it was a guy named Larry Moran that started it all off. Larry runs the Monsters of Rock cruise.
Yep.
He does other cruises too. He's been around for a long time. Road manager. He worked with Cinderella. Road manager for Poison as well. And the guys lives his life vicariously through all his bands because he really loves it. He wants to keep that music strong, and he sees there's a great, huge market out there, and he likes to be a part of it. And he certainly was here as the catalyst on the Beatles Rock Show, because during that whole shutdown, he suggested coming out there and doing a live streaming show for free as the Beatles Rock Show. We'll call it Hard Rock Night at the time. We didn't change the name quite yet, but we call it Beatles Rock Show. So we went down to the live streaming show for him in Cincinnati with Louder, with a company out there, Loud Productions, and they were, they set all the gear up, and the band just shows up and plays a whole show in front of how many people are going to be watching. You just don't know. And we did that Beatles Rock Show, and it was an hour gig. And afterwards, we checked out on the social media. We had like over 30,000 people that were watching us. We said,
Wow.
"Man, that's way more than would come out and see Enough Snuff." And not in the early days, obviously, we dwarfed those numbers. But in today's day and age, that was pretty good. People taking time on their schedule to watch Enough Snuff playing these Beatles songs.
Yeah.
And from there, that took off. And then he started putting us on the Monster Rock cruises and the Monsters on the Mountain. And then the band started getting some legs. And now we're doing shows. We have them
Yeah.
periodically around the United States. We just did Key West in Florida Beatle Rock show with Extreme and Adler from Guns N' Roses, along with a 38 Special and Loverboy and all these bands from the
Cool.
80s and 90s. And it was absolutely fantastic. And they treated us so well. And then we did the kickoff party. We headlined it, and I'm not so sure if it was called Enough Snuff if we would have been able to bring in 5,000-6,000 people for that first gig. But everyone showed up there, and if you watched how people relaxed to those songs, it just brings back memories and really touches everyone's soul. So I love playing the Beatles songs. I think that it's a big thing, and it keeps our history out there. And a lot of the newer fans, the new generation, hears these songs, and it really opens up a whole new spectrum to how music was back then and how it is today. Remember, we're not a tribute band; it's a reinterpretation of the Beatles
Yes,
through our eyes,
it is.
playing through Marshall amplifiers and Mesa boogies and SVTs and big drums.
Yeah, we're really excited about some of these upcoming dates because Erica is actually going to fly out to Los Angeles and we're going to catch your show at the Whiskey. Um, for fan,
Fantastic. You guys are going to love the Whiskey. My buddy Jake runs that place with Michael, and
yeah,
wonderful people over there. And they have some of the biggest bands. It's a venue that helps uh, give credence to any bands that aren't really popular out there. The newer bands that are out there really helps elevate you as a band when you can say you played the Whiskey a Go-Go. But when you look back at the history of that place
yeah,
and see all the groups that have played there, big bands, starting out obviously with the Doors and the Guns N' Roses out there and Cheap Trick and Kiss. It's just a fantastic venue to really set the tone for a future for any band that's out there, new or old.
yeah. It's such an iconic venue. We actually did a whole episode on the Whiskey and Rainbow as well. But so for fans like Erica and I who've been with you from the 80s on, what can we expect for that show? What's going to feel the same? What's going to feel different?
Well, it looks like you guys, from the way what I see right now, looking at both your pretty mugs, you guys probably started listening to Enough Stuff when you're 8 or 9 years old. So, kudos
Little
to you
older.
for still,
A little
for
older.
yeah. So you guys both look fantastic. I think what you'll get is a potpourri of Enough Snuff songs, as I've said a million times. It's early Enough Snuff all the way through. We have 20 albums out right now. Our newest record just came out, by the way, called Finer Than
Wow.
Sin. It's on Frontiers. But if you look at the catalog of Enough Snuff, check out EnuffZ'Nuff.com. You'll see all of our albums that are up there. 20 full-length records, and probably more with bootlegs and studio records as well. So we got a lot of input. It's only going to be an hour and a half set because there's a noise ordinance over there.
Yeah.
Can't play past a certain time. But we'll try to mix it up and play the old and new together. You'll get some of those Beatles songs as well. I've been throwing them in a set every single night. And I'm blown away by how many people love those Beatles songs. They seem to fit the set very well with New Thing, Fly, Michelle, Baby Loves You, and the potpourri of Enough stuff that we're going to play. Probably do a lot of stuff off of Animals and Human Intelligence, maybe, and Strength album as well, which is the second and third record of Enough's Enough.
Right.
But we'll throw some new songs in this set as well. So we'll do some stuff off Diamond Boy, and maybe do something off our new album as well as the Beatles songs I mentioned.
Great.
I just love that you personally have had such longevity in this business. It appears that one of your most prolific skills is really networking. I mean, you do so many collaborations with other people. And from an outsider looking in, it feels like that connection with people is what really drives you, whether it's working on a new project or connecting with fans of the band. But is that something that provides you with a spark, or what drives you day in and day out all of these years that you've been performing this music and performing live?
Well, to quote my grandpa, he says, luck is the resin of design. It's a business that's predicated on friendships and relationships.
Yeah.
I'm known to play bass in Enuff Z'Nuff, but I've mentioned the other groups I've worked with as well, and Missing Persons, Adler's Appetite, the London Choir Boys. Now they're called the Choir Boys. and I'm on a new record with Anne Margaret, the actress Anne Margaret from all the,
Wow.
from Tommy and all those Elvis Presley movies.
Yeah.
And she just did a solo record, comes out on April 14th on Cleopatra. It's called Born to Run, I think it's called,
Amazing.
or Born to Be Wild. That's it, Born to Be Wild. And I got called to do that record, and that's got Pete Townsend on there and Joe Perry from Aerosmith and all
Wow.
these, and Robin Ford, all these heavyweights are on there. And I'm singing, I'm doing a duet with Anne Margaret. It's a miracle. I'd still make out with her right now to this day, too. She's 81 years old. She still looks
Beautiful.
fantastic. Yeah, she's charming beyond belief. And so I try to mix and get around different projects. The new Choir Boys record's coming out this year too, and Joe Elliott's on there with Anger Anderson and Buck Cherry, and I'm on that record too, and I'm playing on a bunch of songs and singing on a lot of stuff with them. So I like to mix it up. I produce other projects too. There's bands that are coming out right now. A lot of stuff on Pavement Records that I just did. The Steve Ramone record, it comes out any day now. The Midnight Devils, fantastic band I just toured with over in Europe. Their new record's out on there. I produced that as well. And Burning Fields, another band that I've worked with. They're W Plant, the Whiskey a Go Go that night, opening for us. I try to mix it up and do a lot of different musical projects. I have a new song I'm working on right now with Steve Brown from Trickster / Def Leppard. And a wonderful track. He's another good singer songwriter. So I just want to get my hands on a bunch of little things, and if it's good and it feels good to me, sometimes you're rewarded more by doing great work than you are, financially. I'm not saying these projects don't pay or anything, but a lot of them are just doing it for a labor of love, and that's it. I appreciate and love doing it. I like the opportunities. I'm lucky to get a chance to do that kind of stuff with different artists, and if I can help somebody out, that's more power to it. That's rewarding at the end of the day as well.
Cool. Chip, I'm kind of dying to ask, how did the band name Enuff Z'Nuff come about, and also your stage name? Did one come before the other?
My brother actually named me. I've always been Chip, and Donnie's always been Donnie. But when we were leaving, we were hanging out with these guys that were 15 years older than us. Wonderful musicians. We were just getting ready to put together the band. We didn't know what we were going to call it. My buddy Bob McNaught was playing keyboards in it, and my other friend Mick Fabus was playing guitar, and Steve Jones was playing drums. And these guys were all great guys. Still to this day, I love them to death. And they were, after a few rehearsals together, we had no name or anything, so we all picked out of a straw. And one of the names was Enough is Enough. And we picked that, and see everybody goes, "Oh, that's going to be the winner. That's going to be the name of the band." And we go, "Okay." And then we split. We split from that that recording session. And that guy jumped in the car with Donnie. And he goes, "Listen, bro, I'm not so sure this is going to work for us." I go, "Yeah, I think I'm going to do my own thing too. I just want to put together my own band." And he goes, "Well, if you do that, I'm coming with you." And I go, "Okay." And he goes, I go, "I like Enuff Z'Nuff, but not like it's spelled." I go, "But it's kind of a little ring. It stands on its own." And Donnie goes, "Well, you should be Chip Z'Nuff, and I'll just be Donnie V." And I go, "Yeah, we were laughing about it." He goes, "Yeah, one Chip's enough." And we're giggling and talking. And we stopped over and he got something to eat. And he goes, "Yeah, hey, Chip's enough." He started calling me Chip's enough before anybody knew it. Everybody just called me Chip. And I was Chip Gregory, actually. And so, because that's my first name when I was born, and my father's name as well. So, and I thought Chip Gregory, it got a little swing to it. But, after that night of hanging out with Donnie, the next day when we woke up and, "Hey, what's happening, Chip Z'Nuff?" I go, "What's happening, Donnie B?" And that was it. It just stayed like that. And then when we got to Atco, Atlantic, and they wanted to sign the band, they said, "Well, we want to change the name of the band." And I go, "Oh, guys, why would you do that?" I go, There's a lot of people that know who we are here in the Midwest." And Derek Shulman says, "How many people do you think know you guys right now, Chip?" I said, "I don't know, 20, 30,000. He goes, "When I'm done working with your band, millions are going to know who you cats are." I go, "Okay, bro, whatever you say. And what do you want for a name?" And he wanted to call us a couple different names, and I wasn't a fan of it at all. One of them was Trick or Treat,
Yeah.
and another one was Flies on Fire, and another one was called Schoolyard.
Hmm.
And then so I went home that night pretty much devastated. I knew I had a record deal. I knew we were going to get a little bit of money to pay for the record, and we could pay for our rent for a couple of months. But I certainly really liked the ring of Enuff Z'Nuff. And I got the phone ring in the morning. No cell phone back then, by the way. And I don't know who's calling me at 8:30 in the morning, but I'm not very happy about it. I get up and go, yeah, good morning. And it was Derek Shulman. He goes, all right, mate, you win. And he hung up. And I go, we get to keep the name Enuff Z'Nuff. That's unbelievable. And I'm glad we had the chance. And the record company helped us with the font and everything. But it was a combination of, I guess, intuitiveness on the part of Donnie and myself, and realizing that it was time to take it to the next level and move on our own. And I'm glad we took a chance. And for those other musicians I just mentioned, all those guys are doing fabulous in life. So God bless them too, and we're still good friends.
That's great.
Amazing. And like Tina said, we'll see you on April 13th at the Whiskey. We're very excited about that. But if we're fans of you and of the band, what's next on the horizon for you? What should we really look out for? I know that you're working on so many things. What's kind of like the very next thing that we should be anticipating?
The next thing you'll be anticipating, I would hope, would be the next single for the Finer Than Sin record that Frontiers Records is going to put out. It's a song called Intoxicated. It pretty much speaks for itself about how much better you feel when you're not intoxicated. Guys, we certainly know we've confused motion with progress for years and years, but for some reasons, there's somebody from above that's watching over us.
Yeah.
Get ready for another tour too. I think it comes out in July. So a new single, Intoxicated, Enuff Z'Nuff. The album's Finer Than Sin. You can get it all anywhere: Deezer, iTunes, Rhapsody, eMusic, Spotify, wherever you can find your music, wherever you listen to it, it's all there. Also on YouTube. And then the new tour comes out in July. I won't know until next week what it's going to be. I'll be able to announce it on stage at the Whiskey A Go Go. But massive news for Enuff Z'Nuff fans. They're going to be so happy because we're going to be back on the road again. And we did 153 shows last year. We're going to try to beat that this year.
Wow.
Holy cow. You guys are machines.
It's incredible, because we went all around the country. We're 2.5 months out with Skid Row. They were fantastic, by the way.
Wow.
Every show we played, all the O2 Academies and Ritz's and wonder rooms that are set up through Live Nations out there. And Skid Row was making up a past tour that they missed because of the shutdown. Mm-hmm. And that band's running on total fire. And it's just incredible how the people came out to those shows every single night. We were playing, we weren't doing arenas. It was 2,000 seaters, but they were packed to the rafters every night, and they knew every word to every single song. And that's when I really used a lot of those Beatles songs in the Enuff Z'Nuff set, because I knew fans would know Fly High, Michelle. They'll know New Thing. Perhaps they'll even know Baby Loves You, but I wasn't sure if the scope would get any farther than that. So I threw those Beatles songs in a Magical Mystery Tour. And I think we did Jet in the set, the old Paul McCartney, Linda McCartney cover from Paul McCartney and the Wings. And we did Eleanor Rigby in the set as well. And all that stuff I told you we did from 67 through 70. And the fans, a lot of them, they thought it was our Enuff song. They thought they were Enuff Z'Nuff songs. So it was great there. So new tour, new single. And then, of course, the Anne Margaret record comes out, you guys. And if you want to check that out, it's incredible. I'm playing with Robin Ford in an old song called Why Do Fools Fall in Love. Frankie Lyman. I think it's a great little rock and roll record, and God bless her that she's still out there looking and singing well.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, we have a lot to look forward to then. We're so excited, Chip, that you joined us today. We could probably talk to you all day. I know you have other things to do, but thank you so much for coming onto the podcast with us. And now it's kind of like the section where we ask our listeners to chime in. Tell us about your favorite Enuff Z'Nuff moments. Have you attended a show recently? What's your favorite Enuff Z'Nuff song? Are you going to catch a date on their upcoming tour? You can follow us and interact with us on our website, www.a92a.life, on Instagram at A92A_life, or check out our Facebook page, A92A. Until next time, keep ratting those bangs and banging those heads. Chip, again, we so appreciate you. Thank you so much for joining us today. You were absolutely wonderful.
Thank you very much. May the best thing that happened to us last year be the worst thing that happens to us this year. God bless everyone out there. See you on the road.
See you, Chip.